Hello everyone. Thank you for following the story of Henry, the brave police officer and CEO, alongside Lytuky as they uncover the mysterious truth behind her parents' death. From looming dangers and buried secrets to relentless determination for justice, this story shows the power of courage and humanity. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next episodes. During the investigation into the mysterious murder of Lytuky's parents, police officer and CEO Henry uncovered a crucial lead that pointed to Mrs. N, a woman who had disappeared for years and was none other than Lytuky's foster mother. She was the last living witness to the tragedy and held secrets that the old general, a shadowy and powerful figure, had spent decades trying to bury. Without hesitation, Henry decided to take Lytuky to meet her foster mother, hoping to uncover the missing link in a case that had long been suppressed. They traveled along a winding mountain path, through dense fog and cold, towering trees as dusk settled over the hills. Hidden deep in a quiet valley stood a small, moss-covered wooden house, weathered, forgotten, and barely intact. When the door creaked open, Mrs. N appeared, frail, her white hair disheveled, and her eyes filled with fear and recognition. She embraced Lytuky tightly, as if she had waited a lifetime for this moment. Once they had settled, Mrs. N began to speak. Her voice was hoarse and broken, but every word she uttered cut deep into Lytuky's heart. She recounted the truth about Lytuky's parents, two brave individuals who once held classified documents exposing the old general's dark dealings, corruption, money laundering, silencing whistleblowers, and manipulating power at the highest levels. They had tried to deliver the evidence to the authorities, but betrayal from within sealed their fate. On the night of the murder, Mrs. N managed to escape with infant Lytuky and a portion of the documents. She had lived in hiding ever since, waiting for someone courageous enough to confront the past. Henry carefully recorded every word, his mind reeling from the revelations. But just as the air grew tense, the electricity in the house abruptly went out. The entire room fell into darkness. A strange, chemical-scented white mist drifted in through the door crack. It wasn't toxic, nor deadly, but it was a message. A silent warning. You're being watched. No violence. No direct threat. Just a chilling signal. We know what you're doing. Without a word, Henry grabbed Lytuky's hand and gestured for Mrs. N to follow. The three of them slipped out through a hidden back path leading down the hillside. They ran silently through the night wind, the cold biting at their skin. But fate was merciless. As they descended a slippery path still damp from the previous night's rain, Henry's foot caught on a slick patch. He fell hard, his tall frame crashing into a rock. Lytuky screamed, rushing to his side. Henry lay unconscious, blood trickling from the back of his head, soaking through his shirt. Mrs. N, though shaken, managed to keep her composure and helped Lytuky carry him further downhill. In the distance, a faint flashlight flickered between the trees, unknown whether friend or foe, but there was no turning back. The old general didn't need to kill Henry. He only had to make sure Henry could no longer continue the investigation, and that was enough to bury the truth forever. The small hospital nestled in the quiet mountain town was rarely chaotic, but that night, it buzzed with urgency as an emergency patient was rushed in. Henry was unconscious, bleeding from his head, and his left arm was broken. Lytuky sat beside the stretcher, her face pale with fear. She didn't say a word, only gripped Henry's cold hand tightly, as if letting go would mean losing him forever. Doctors quickly treated the wounds, stitched the deep cut on his head, and set the broken arm in a cast. Hours passed like centuries. Finally, Henry was transferred to the recovery room. He still hadn't regained consciousness. The only sound breaking the silence was the steady beeping of the heart monitor, faint reassurance in the storm of Lytuky's heart. She stayed by his bedside all night, eyes sunken with exhaustion, her hair in disarray. But she didn't leave. Lytuky warmed water to wipe his face, gently placed her hand on his forehead to check his temperature, and watched over him like a quiet guardian. Every time she looked at him, she remembered how many times he had risked his life for her, from the beginning of the investigation to the moment he shielded her and her foster mother from the shadows closing in. Henry had never said he loved her, but every action of his had already spoken those words. The next morning, Henry's eyelids fluttered slightly. Lytuky held her breath and stepped closer just as he let out a soft groan, a weak smile forming at the corners of his mouth. "I'm still alive?" Lytuky burst into tears, nodding. She couldn't hold back anymore and clasped his hand tightly. "You scared me to death. You're still here, then I didn't fail." The following days passed quietly. Lytuky took care of him like family. She learned to change his bandages, fed him porridge spoon by spoon, and even helped him walk as he began physical therapy. Though the pain was intense, Henry found strength in her smile and gentle encouragement. One evening, when it was just the two of them in the hospital room, Henry stared out the window and said in a low voice, "Maybe I should stop. I almost made you lose me." Lytuky walked over, sat by the bed, and looked into his eyes, teary but firm. "If you stop, my parents will never rest in peace. You once said you'd find the truth for me. I don't need a hero. I need someone who dares to go all the way, no matter how dark the path." Henry gazed at her, as if etching her face into his memory. He said nothing, only raised a trembling hand to touch her cheek. That warmth said everything he couldn't express. A few days later, the doctors allowed Henry to be discharged. The weather that day was calm, sunlight casting soft gold over the road to the gate. Henry put on his coat, still weak but walking with more determination. Lytuky walked beside him, gently supporting his casted arm like a silent pillar of strength. Before stepping into the car, Henry turned to her. "I won't give up. The truth is still out there, and I will bring it into the light." Lytuky nodded. She didn't need him to swear. She knew he had already promised, with his heart. Two weeks after being discharged, Henry returned not to rest, but to fight. His body still ached, and his arm was stiff in the cast, but his mind had never been sharper. He spent long nights reviewing old case files, listening again to Mrs. N's testimony, and tracing forgotten names buried deep in past reports. There was a pattern, a web of financial cover-ups, silenced whistleblowers, and mysterious disappearances, all linked to one man, the old general. Henry knew he couldn't bring this man down with force. The old general had influence across law enforcement, media, and government. One wrong move, and the truth would vanish, just like Lytukai's parents. So, Henry played quietly, smartly. He reached out to old colleagues he could trust, used his tech company's resources to uncover encrypted files once thought lost, and slowly pieced together the missing puzzle. One afternoon, as rain tapped softly against his office window, Henry received an anonymous flash drive in the mail. No return address. No note. But inside was everything: audio recordings, financial transfers, surveillance images, proof that the old general had ordered the execution of Lytukai's parents after they threatened to expose him. It was chilling. Precise. Final. Henry clutched the drive tightly. He had what he needed. But exposing it would mean placing himself and Lytuky in the crosshairs again. That night, he met Lytuky at a small, quiet tea house outside the city. She listened in silence as he laid everything out. "You can't go back after this," she said, voice trembling. "I never planned to. If something happens to you." Henry reached across the table, took her hand. "If I fall, someone else will stand. But if we do nothing, they win forever. Your parents didn't die for silence." Tears welled in Lytukai's eyes, but she nodded. She had stopped being a scared girl. She was ready to face the storm, side by side with him. The next morning, Henry arranged a private meeting with the old general at a heavily guarded estate on the outskirts of the city. No press. No police. Just truth and shadows. The general sat across from him, calm, composed, eyes filled with the weight of a man who had built an empire on fear. "You've come far, boy," he said, sipping tea. "But you're still too young to understand how power works." Henry smiled, quiet and sharp. "Power doesn't erase truth. It only delays it." The general chuckled. "What do you want? Money? Protection? A seat at the table?" Henry stood up, placed the flash drive on the table. "I want justice." For a moment, silence thickened between them like fog. The general's hand hovered near the drive, then stopped. "You know they'll come for you. Let them. I'm not afraid of the dark anymore." That evening, Henry handed the files to a small group of journalists and prosecutors he knew couldn't be bought. Within days, headlines exploded across the country. The legacy of the old general began to unravel. Back in their apartment, Lytuky watched the news in stunned silence. Henry sat beside her, wrapping his good arm around her shoulder. "It's only the beginning," he said. She leaned into him. "And we'll face the rest together." Outside, rain fell once again, but this time, it felt like a cleansing storm washing away years of silence, fear, and lies. Henry had kept his promise. The truth was no longer in the shadows.